This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy. You're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment. Our first guest today is Amanda Mackenzie, author of The Do-Over. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thanks, Bob and Stacy.
So I want to give everybody some background on Amanda. She is a writer from the Boston area. After graduating from the University of Richmond, she taught English in Hungary, earned a Master of Divinity, and became an ordained congressional minister. In her 30s, Amanda had a do-over and went to work on a small farm. She also catered farm-to-table dinners. Her crowning achievement was a rustic country wedding for 100, after which she drank all the leftover wine straight from the bottle and decided to stick to cooking just for fun. Today, Amanda is a part-time professor of world religions, preaches, meditates, and practices yoga. She believes in the power of positivity, possibility, and good coffee. The Do-Over is her first book. And by the way, anybody listening, you can visit her website at amandamackenzie.com. So I have a bunch of questions for you, Amanda. First off, A lot of us say that we want to do over in life, but few of us actually take the steps to get there. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's a great question, Stacy. And I think, a do-over can be something big. For me, it was actually leaving my marriage and my career around the same time. But other times a do-over can be sort of smaller scale. I sort of think every day, in a way, is a do-over or a beginning again. We wake up in the morning and we have a chance to greet the day in whatever, way we choose to. So in that sense, smaller do-overs are, every day there's a chance for that. And, sometimes with the bigger stuff in life, whether it's relationships or work or where we live, it just takes some sort of time to gear up to making that sort of a change. And at least for me, it took a lot of positive thought in my mind and encouragement from people outside of me, and really believing in my own potential and possibilities. And once sort of all of that came together, I was able to start taking, small steps, which over time, helped me to craft a life that fit much better with my heart than the one I had been living.
Right. Would you say that your exterior life did not match your inner heart? So was it a gradual clarity for you, or did you have an aha moment when you realized you weren't happy or that you weren't being authentic to yourself?
Yeah, I think for me it sort of emerged over time. Like we might have a little feeling inside, like, oh, I'm not quite sure if this relationship or this person brings out the best in me. But you have a few of those thoughts and you can sort of ignore them. But then over time, if you have enough thoughts like that and you realize, wait, at least this is how it worked for me, some of the things that I love doing are no longer in my life, and some of the people that I love spending time with I'm not seeing so much. And so over time, all of that stuff can sort of add up. I sort of think of it like a seed is planted, starts growing, you just see a little bit of activity, but then, wait long enough and there's going to be, something really big blooming. And
right.
So, and for me, so it was a gradual awakening, but at enough small things piling up, sort of like rocks in a cairn, and eventually enough piled up that it signaled like a clear way forward and the fact that I needed to make some changes.
So were there people in your life who helped you see your truth throughout that period?
For me, it was a lot of, it certainly was support from the outside. I mean, once I sort of realized that the way my life looked on the outside didn't fit with how I wanted to feel on the inside, I did start talking to family and friends. And in particular, I said, do I seem like myself? Like, you've known me years, family and old friends, and you've known me for years. And the way I am now, does it seem like, the way I've always been? And once I started asking them, both friends and family said, you seem like sort of a different version of yourself, maybe less joyful and more serious, which would be fine if you want to be more serious. But I sort of felt that myself. I felt less joyful and more serious. And so that affirmation from the outside, but really it starts within. And it was just people outside sort of affirming what I was already feeling. And then also for me, I just did a lot of reading, people that helped me to books that help me feel good or help me like think about different ways to envision my life. I spent a lot of time, by myself, just kind of remembering, okay, this is who I am. This is how I like to feel, and that sort of thing. So yeah, affirmation from without and a lot from within as well.
How hard was it to leave a relationship, and how did you find the courage to go through that process?
Well, that's a good question. Probably one that most of us have at least some, if not a lot of experience with. And I think it's probably different for everyone, depending on the specifics of your relationship and your personality and all of that. For me, again, it was the helpfulness of people from the outside saying, we're here from you. You're not alone, even as you choose to like leave this relationship and are living on your own, which I hadn't been for a while. And also it was a trusting in my own self and truth, and that, it's wonderful to be in a partnership if it brings out the best in you and the best in your partner, and there's a lot of kind of joy and adventure. And not that, most relationships, there's some stuff that you need to work through, but generally speaking, if it is bringing out your best self and your partners, and there's a lot of joyfulness there. And but when that isn't the case, sometimes it just is time to kind of go within and really think about what you want out of life and maybe spend some time on your own. And so it's like I had to just believe that even though I might be by myself for a while, that was preferable to being in a situation that didn't feel like it brought out my best self.
And did you ever have times where you felt like just on the brink that you could have gone the other way, that you're like, this is just crazy. I should just stick with my life as I have it now?
I know that's a great question. In some ways, it would have been easier to stay stuck in the life that I had, and that was a lot of sort of what got me to that life. I went to divinity school as part of the journey of becoming a minister, and there are a lot of times in divinity school, as I was practicing working in a church as a student minister, that it didn't feel like a right fit, but it was easier to stay on that path than it was to leave. I had no idea what I would do if I left being a minister, and that's part of what kept me there for a bunch of years. And it's not that it was bad to have been a minister for all those years. I worked in wonderful churches, and I still preach occasionally, and that's a great gift in my life. But yeah, there was definitely the easiness and like momentum and sort of what would I do if not in this career? And then in terms of, relationship, who would I be with if not for this person? And, will I be floundering around looking for another career job for the rest of my life? Will I be, not ever finding someone else to be in a relationship with? But you can always let the questions and the doubts and the fear rule your decision making, or you can choose to dwell in possibility and to make decisions not from a place of fear, but a place of love. And so eventually, I mustered up the courage. I didn't know the answers or how things would look, but I just trusted and believed that they could look and feel better for me than they did.
Talk about what your life looks like today. How does it mirror your inner values and your true self?
Sure. I definitely feel my life feels much more authentic to me, a lot more joyful. I'm actually working on a second book, which the working title is Choosing Joy. So whatever we're facing in life or whatever's going on around us, how do we choose to really appreciate the moment and find joy, just to find joy and beauty around us. And so I would say that's a big focus of my life. So being present to the moment and finding things to be grateful about and to celebrate, and even in every day. So where I'm sitting right now, the sun is just like shining down on my face, and it feels so good. And so every day I try to spend a little time outside, feel the sun, breathe some fresh air, have a good conversation, drink a good cup of coffee, or eat something that tastes good, and just really appreciate all of that simple stuff. I write is my main work that I do, and someone told me when I was sort of starting out the writing journey, well, if you want to write a book, that's great, but spend a couple days a week writing and see if you actually enjoy the process, because it feels good to have accomplished something, but if you're not enjoying the journey along the way, then maybe think again about what you'd like to do. So I started writing a few days a week and love the process almost more than the finished product. So so I write every day, pretty much every day, and that's something else that keeps me sort of grounded and brings me a lot of joy.
Wow. In a recent blog post on your site, you talked about small acts of bravery. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think for me, a lot of what helped me create a life that fit with my heart and feels more authentic were those what I call small acts of bravery. So the idea that sometimes we do these really big sort of seemingly scary things, like some people, my sister moved from Boston to London and didn't know what that would look like, but felt really called to live in a different part of the world. And some people, as we're saying, leave relationships or change careers, but more often than not, the brave things we do are on a much smaller scale and can really happen every day. So it's, just smiling at someone as you're passing them on the street, starting up a conversation with someone while you're waiting in line, or, choosing to really say what's on your mind in the context of a relationship or a friendship, even if it's a little harder to speak your truth, or asking for something you're really wanting or needing at work, just so little things that feel a tiny bit intimidating, but you could do them. You just have to sort of give yourself a push. And it's those little steps and little acts of bravery, I think, that can really help us create lives that just feel more authentically our own.
Mm-hmm. And what prompted you to write The Do-Over to begin with?
Well, I as I mentioned a moment ago, so I always sort of thought it would be neat to write a book. And once I sat down and tried a couple of days a week of writing, I loved the process of it. And then sort of beyond that, I felt I felt sort of called to share my story. So The Do-Over is memoir, and it's about creating a life that you love, beginning again, creating a life that you love. And so I got so much benefit out of reading books like that as I was sort of gearing up to make my own changes. And I just sort of dreamed of being able to say something in such a way that it could inspire or encourage other people who are sort of standing on the cusp of change to take that leap themselves. And so if reading my story could be encouraging to even a handful of other people, hopefully more, but that would feel really meaningful to me. And so far I've been doing a bunch of, book talks and signing, and it's just really a gift to hear back from people that, they resonate. Everyone's journey is unique and different, but to be able to share your story, I think, and have other people tap into it helps us to feel connected and sometimes inspired.
Do you have any input? Like, why do you think so many people feel stuck? Do you think it's because we're just never, like in school, nobody ever teaches us to like step back and like really think about what you want? It's like, it's almost like, all right, when you graduate, you're supposed to go to college, and then you're supposed to do this.
Yeah, I know. It is interesting, and I sometimes think, Stacey, you have a younger daughter, I think, and so I sometimes wonder if I'd been taught all of this as I was growing up, and I was taught so many wonderful things when I was growing up, but this sort of stuff about like really listening to your heart and really sort of focusing on the positive and believing you can do it. Like if I'd been given those messages from the youngest years, what in the world would my life look like today? Like I think it's pretty amazing, and what a gift to be able to give one's children that way of thinking about themselves and the world, just the openness, the possibility, yes, this is the way that adults around you are doing things, and this is the way that traditionally stuff is done, but that doesn't mean that that's the path that you have to follow. One of the things I write and think a lot about, letting go of the shoulds is sort of the term I use in The Do-Over. So the idea that there's all these things we learn growing up, you should do this, you should do that, and eventually I realized I thought in my mind, the way I was speaking to myself, the word should was coloring everything, and I've really tried to let go of that and think like, okay, what feels right to me? And so my life, I'm 41, and my life looks pretty different than I thought it would at this point, but it feels really right inside. And I think surrounding yourself by people who are also, letting go of the should, so to speak, and who are sort of really following their own path and their own heart, that's part of what can help us to be unstuck. Like just being really aware of how you're thinking of things. Our thoughts just are so powerful in terms of then how we act and the life we create. So being really aware of your thoughts and not judging yourself in the same way you try not to judge others. Like it should start within, not judging and speaking kindly to yourself. And then the kind of like affirmation from outside, people, finding, even if they're not role models or mentors whom but just people you listen to on podcasts or read what they write, who are just sort of living life in a way that you really admire, and getting some inspiration from that.
Wow. Awesome stuff. For anybody just tuning in, this is Amanda Mackenzie. Unfortunately, our time is up, but anybody listening, what better gift could you get somebody for the holidays but a key to getting unstuck in anything that you're feeling stuck in life? First step is to buy a copy of Amanda Mackenzie's book, The Do-Over, and again, you can check out her website at amandamackenzie.com. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Amanda.
Thanks so much, Stacy and Bob. Thank you. Have a great holiday season.
You too.
Great.
Take care.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.